Hello and welcome to the DXgov governance discussion for Wednesday, March 29th, back at 1500 UTC after the daylight savings switch. I will share my screen and go over the agenda for today. That's a different one. Yeah, so as always, proposal roundup, discussion items, and also worth checking out. But I think, there's a lot of folks here to be chatting about a couple things in particular, so we'll get to that. So I guess just looking over the current live proposals here on Alchemy, we have the Operations Guild H1 2023 onboarding and funding proposal. We had discussed this last week and submitted it, and it was voted on, and it was actually then a couple votes last night. You can see here that moved it into the negative or failing one. And as with the governance system, that means it restarts the clock for the quiet ending period. So that was 2 days ago. So this proposal will extend or is open for voting for another 1 day and 9 hours here. Cool. And then we have DLabs DXD vesting for April. I haven't done the math. Actually, I think maybe it will be done here in terms of DX vote for April 1. Actually, it must be hopefully UTC time there, but Dave running up right to the hour here in terms of the vesting there, so that's set to pass in 1 day, 19 hours. And then we have a rep claim from, I believe this is Adam here as well. So these are all things that were earned on or all approved on Gnosis chain thing. Is this bot language? I thought that was like some date or something. But anyway, so this is Adams there. And it also, I think as it includes here, it includes 8,000 rep from the January and February 2023 worker period. Yeah, and then we have a Venki rep claim as well for these. So this is for the last year, but then also for January, February, and March as well. Cool. And then we have I guess just to point out this one that is boosting here, Robert's DXD redemption balance number 1. This is a pretty big one. We can talk about this if we want to, but I think there's been some discussion in Discord on this one. So this is a pretty big one. It is the right calculations if anyone is going, and this has just been boosted 12 hours ago. So that will have another 7 days to go. Cool. And then I guess maybe the main event, this proposal that was submitted on Monday from an address, does not have any rep in it, but this was submitted on Monday after some discussion over the weekend in the forum. It was staked on Monday afternoon, or this is US time, Monday afternoon. And there's been some additional discussion. Candy Fork did downstake it on Tuesday, and then it has been upstaked on Tuesday afterwards, and now has been boosting, I guess, for about 20 hours here. So there's already been 6 votes on them. Candy Fork has already voted against it. We can go into the kind of reasons maybe for that, but I guess because this is the call that maybe the person could join Jitsi, but I don't know if either the submitter of this proposal or anyone else wants to kind of set the stage here for what this proposal specifically calls for. Guess we will see if Killswitch has entered the chat. Okay, I guess no. Killswitch, so I guess then there is 10.57% rep that has voted for. And so, there's a couple addresses here. I think this is Geronimo, this is Dave, and some other addresses here that have longstanding reputation from before worker proposals for DXDAO. So I don't know if maybe they wanted to set the stage or someone wants to advocate for this proposal.
Maybe you could just read the proposal or give people some context here.
I
can. I said I'd join because I do have opinions about this.
And that's fine. Yeah. So I can read the text. So this proposal includes discontinuing DXD redemptions, discontinuing DXD issuance, discontinuing rep issuance, accelerate vesting DXD, implementing a fixed DXD claim process against 80% of the treasury, excluding DXD, swapper, ENS, and ARB, distributing 8% of the treasury, excluding DXD, swapper, ENS, and ARB to rep holders that would have received the 8,000 DXD under the governance 2.0 proposal. Distributing ENS tokens to NIMI treasury, distributing swapper tokens to swapper treasury, distributing ARB airdrop tokens to swapper treasury, distributing 6% of treasury, excluding DXD, swapper, ENS, and ARB to swapper treasury, distributing 6% of treasury, excluding DXD, swapper, ENS, and ARB to Caret treasury. So I think those are the bullet points there. And then there is maybe some explanation and justification of that, but I think that's kind of, it's not too long of a proposal. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think that looks pretty clear to me. And there's a few reasons I like this proposal. And I'll just start, I think, by talking about the problems that I see that I think need to be generally addressed. I think the first is the fact that this DXD redemption program that's been implemented like spirals out of control and then leaves the treasury with, much less than 30% of where it started. I think that's just an unsustainable system. I think also, there's been several restructuring efforts, but they don't seem to have brought spending under control. Like I still think just fundamentally DXDAO lacks the ability to do something as simple as layoffs. And I think that gives rise to a third problem, which is a lack of kind of motivation and kind of like morale being low. And I kind of get that impression from talking to several contributors that people feel like kind of motivation is gone. People look over their shoulders. Other people maybe aren't working hard or they just don't feel aligned. And so I like this proposal because I think it actually addresses all of those problems. So that's why I haven't voted yet, but I think overall I support those problems being solved, and this kind of goes a long way to fixing those.
Gusto just put on his
like
such a drop in.
Yeah. Hola, John. Nice to have you here. Something that, well, I think the proposal brings valid concerns and very, very valid concerns. I think it is very harsh how it was submitted and lead, because we are seeing here a lot of actions that are proposed to be implemented, and this is, first of all, this is going to take a lot of time and technical capability to implement this. I think if we want to go this way, it might be good to analyze, maybe split this in different items if we really want to execute all these actions, or if we want to add new ones. For example, what happens to the other squads, like that they have a working product, for example, DXgov and Davi. So it is clear here that it's going to be left out, but maybe there is it worth having a discussion where layoff join the chat. Some people making fun. We are taking this seriously, Adam. Maybe it's I think again this proposal bring valid concerns, but if we want to go this road, it will be great to take this as a start of the discussion of if we want to really execute it, how it's being to execute, and if this is going to be the final terms of DXDAO termination. I voted against this proposal just because of these reasons. I think it was rushed, and there is a lack of explaining how this is going to be executed and who is going to own certain tasks that needs to be executed. That's me. Regarding the DXG spiral of death that is being presented, I know that there is a lot of concerns here, so maybe this is something that can also be addressed. I mean, it should be addressed if we want to continue DXgov. So I know, Chris, you also voted against this proposal. What are your concerns about? I think the most the highest priority here, or the people are most concerned of, is again the drain of the treasury, right? Isn't what concerns you the most, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sets the stage because DXgov is basically on this path to kind of fall apart, and I think it won't be. I think it would be messy if it just goes on the path that it's on.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess I think Gusto and I are the only votes for or against this, so maybe I can go next. I did write something up when I did vote and kind of explain. Yes, because I think hearing kind of John's concerns and the different kind of questions that have emerged both in the Discord and elsewhere. Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation in terms of where things are at, and I take a lot of the input on that. Right now, it's this proposal is in front of us here, and this proposal and like kind of the specifics of it are, I think, what we're really focusing on debating. And I understand this proposal is meant to address like all of those problems and issues that we've been talking about, and I think those are important to address. But in terms of like the specifics of this proposal, the things I guess I kind of disagree with here, as a rep holder, I just think it's a very uneven distribution of DXDAO's resources, right? So I think as Augusto said, this is a proposal to dissolve DXDAO and disperse of its assets. And so if that is the method going forward, then the distribution and how that goes about is very, very important. And I think this proposal just does not do a good job of distributing that, because it leaves out, DXDAO right now has 3 functioning products, Swapper, Carrot, and Davi, and it just leaves out one of them completely without really a justification for why. So if we want to go through this route in terms of enabling the products, giving them more autonomy, all of that kind of driven from there, I think that's fine. It just seems like pretty clear that the 3 products should be treated there, and maybe there's a difference of those, but some discussion around those rather than what's in here. Similarly, I don't really understand the justification for paying the rep holders from the I guess it would have been September 2021 snapshot for rep. So Kenny Fork was a reputation holder there, so would presumably get some of the DXD from that. But the point of that allocation was to deliver on governance 2.0. And so I know there's been governance 2.0 is this, like, I don't know, white whale, if that's the right metaphor, but is this thing that of course we've chased for a while and have not delivered. And so I don't really understand the distributing to that portion specifically because of that, because that was contingent on that. And then as a DXD holder, as I said here, Candy Fork has about 350 liquid DXD in addition to whatever is getting in addition to vesting, which is about 200 there. So I'm looking after Candy Fork's financial interest here, and obviously, like, I think there's a reason that Candy Fork has a lot of DXD, because I think that is something that I believe very strongly in, and I believe it has strong value. And that is partially because of the treasury backing and how we do that. But really, what I think the DXD model, and this was what's kind of coming out of the token model, was being able to have an on-chain crypto treasury, right? Something that is governed on-chain, that is simultaneously incubating and taking bets on projects in the space, right? And so it's funding them, it's incubating them, it's developing them. Obviously, this is one we've done with Swapper, Carrot, and with Davi now. Obviously, there's been Omen in the past that we've also done this with. So this is this idea of an on-chain treasury, and then you get the upside potential of the products, right? That to me was the DXD sell, and this proposal just doesn't really, it just forfeits all of those things. I think NIMI specifically, like, that was a proposal that passed in August to give NIMI 10%, $100,000 from the treasury, plus 6 months of 40% for, I think it was 4 or 5 contributors. So that turned out to be about $75,000. So about $175,000 was invested into NIMI. And this proposal, like, so DXD holders, right, in terms of funding that, DXD holders funded the treasury. So therefore they funded the investment grant to NIMI. That is just kind of evaporated in this, and there's no really kind of precursor for that. The same for Swapper itself, like DXD holders were integral to that, but instead all the, like, they don't get any kind of say in terms of how Swapper is distributed. The ones in the treasury just kind of all goes there. So I think that thinking about how that plays out, I think is really important. And yeah, just to kind of reiterate what Augusto had said, right, that this is, I guess, so I think it was posted on Thursday was the initial discussion, and then there was kind of some on the forum. And so it's been almost a week of this, right? And if this is where the DAO wants to head, right, if there's consensus in terms of the dissolution of DXDAO, then there should be serious thought and consideration into the terms of that dissolution. And this proposal does not do that at all, right? And this proposal is what we're kind of voting on right now. So I think voting on this now without kind of fixing these problems or having this kind of conversation doesn't make a lot of sense there. So that's why Candy Fork voted no on this proposal. And that's why, yeah, I think we can take this as signal and an important conversation about how things need to get changed or things need to get upended or about this proposal and dissolution. But to me, this proposal is not the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I voted for it. I explained myself in the forum. I think like right now, if you look at it right now, if you want to keep the 6% spending on products based on treasury NAV in July, probably like a third of the workforce has to be cut, and even more if more redemptions go through in that time, right? Then even if you talk about incubating other products, where does that money come from? You know, does that mean like DXgov, Swapper, and Carrot are completely out already? Like they won't get any budgets approved? Or like where is that additional funding going to come from? And yeah, I think like, you know, all of these different teams have a shit ton of rep themselves, you know, and I don't think people will necessarily vote to not pass their own budget. So I think it will be pretty much of a bloodbath when those proposals do go live and people try to downvote different guilds. And so I think this proposal is actually much fairer, because here it's kind of like, yeah, it's shutting down everything, but everyone gets to vest their DXD immediately, which if you get fired in June, good luck that DXD has any value in 3 years, you know, like unfortunately with the current system, I have very little faith in that, you know. So if you're part of the 1/3 or maybe even more that's out in June or July, you're pretty much fucked, you know. This one is very fair because it's just based on, you know, your DXD you've got pending investing. Everyone gets the same amount based on what they've vested. Like everyone gets the full 100%. And of course, yeah, I mean, for me personally, of course, I have a lot of DXD that's vesting. I'm actually not a full-time contributor at NIMI anymore, but of course, I'm still involved in NIMI, so I would have a big upside or would be happy for the NIMI team to receive those tokens. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts. And then also because Ross G called me fat. Ross, I don't even care to answer to you, bruh.
Not exactly professional there, but I also don't think it's a dissolution of DXD for sure, but it's not a full dissolution of the DAO because of the funds that are directed at the products. So DXD is, you know, getting 80% of the remaining treasury, and that's like the market, I think, has also spoken for a long time that it doesn't really value the products at anything, right? Because DXD is long traded well below the net asset value of the treasury, which is sort of like if the market's speaking, saying that it expects DXDAO to waste its money and not generate upside, right? So, I mean, this gives.
Why would you not just give away all of the treasury and let each product stand on its own to raise its own money instead of giving 12% away to two projects whoever this kill switch is, and clearly you agree with this, and the other guys agree with this, that these two projects are worthy of getting 12% of the treasury. These other projects aren't. Yeah, look, all these projects have been around and failed to get traction for the same amount of time. Like, why do you get to play favorites on these projects get this and those projects don't get this? If they can all raise money and people don't believe in them, then they should be equally fucked or equally supported. They all need to spin out. But this is just like hypocritical and totally nonsensical as to why one deserves this money and the other doesn't deserve this money. And there's no argument for why or what makes one reason better than another.
Just put up a proposal, bro. That's how DXgov works.
Yeah, maybe
this one, bro.
The easiest seems like we have 3 projects, right? Where we have to, like Chris said, Davi, Swapper, and Carrot. Here we're taking 2 in count, and there are some things like the 8% of the DXE distribution on a snapshot on governance 2.0. So there are some changes that can be done to split, to give each project the same, right, an equal amount, and have equal exit opportunities, right, of DXgov. That might be the first one. That is what I'm hearing, and what at least if something like this, if a proposal closing it out would happen, I think that would be the first one, because we are leaving one outside, and yeah, I think that would be the first option if we want to execute a closure like this. Like Chris mentioned, this proposal I think needs a bit more discussion. I know every time someone says that, they say, "Oh, now we are going again on the DXgov bureaucracy, and we talk, and we get nothing done." The idea would be to change a bit this proposal, maybe to create an amendment or something that can be proposed where we can find more amicable and equal terms for everyone involved in DXgov if this is going to happen. This is what I meant. I don't want to delay it and put rocks on the way. I'm just saying that maybe we should. I think we should put a lot more thought into it. It is being quite clear that maybe this is the direction that the community want to take, which it is sad for me. But if it is the direction that we really want to take, well, Benki was very explicit. I think that was for me was a turning point on the discussion when I saw that all with entire respect, right? If you see that, okay, DXgov is dissolving, but the projects and the squad where you are involved are getting funding, where you will be continue to build and work, I would have done the same. So the squad I belong, which is DXgov and operations, and I can speak for the rest of DXgov. We just had a call where people, contributors are motivated. They still want to continue working on the product if DXgov ends, and I think it will be very good if we can find equal time for every product in DXgov that have been created here in this organization since the beginning.
I feel like the important thing and like what resonates with me, at least parts of this proposal, is that like where the rubber meets the road with any of this like product development, right, is like finding real users and like testing it in the market. And I don't think it does anybody any service to kind of like have things be too sheltered. And I feel like DXgov is sort of sheltering the products from the reality of what they're doing. And, I mean, can be sympathetic to the points about DXgov, but what I like about this proposal is that it's like putting the products like out there to actually face reality. And I think that's really better for all of the contributors, because it's really just not healthy for anybody's career to kind of just be somewhere where like morale is low and things are just comfy, but not challenging. Like it's much better to like get out there and face challenges and like improve yourself, even if it's more difficult at first. And what I really don't like about what has happened with DXDAO is that it's sort of become this bureaucratic kind of like stagnation. That's exactly the type of thing that I hated about, you know, previous companies that I've worked for, and what was my original motivation for even working on governance and DXDAO in the first place. So it's like really painful to see how kind of bureaucratic and like how low the morale is. And so what I like about this is it does send money to the products that are live and have users. And I mean, I do hear the arguments though that you know, why not DXgov or like other efforts? I mean, that makes sense as well.
I think Omen is still like I don't know if there's a way to I don't know. Omen is like still has, I think, a lot of potential when the world eventually figures out prediction markets.
Yeah, I mean, Omen's old tech, and now you've got Azuro and Thales and some other efforts coming. But yeah,
It's a great name. 4 letters, ENS.
I think there was a suggestion to reopen up Omen for the Ross G versus Pinkhawk boxing match later this year in the governance.
Okay, well, we've had a couple different thoughts and opinions. They all happen to be at the top of my screen. I wasn't sure if that has like happened with everybody else, but they're the people at the top of my screen. I don't know if other people in the call have anything they'd like to share about this proposal. Yeah.
I think it would be good to hear from other folks. I think sometimes it's just the same old people talking.
It's me. It's listening to all the discussions. I kind of read this proposal, and just so that everybody knows, I'm quite happy to leave the DAO if that's what would make the people happy in terms of keeping expenditure low. When I joined the DAO, I joined it because of what you, John, and Chris and Augusto had said on that podcast, where you basically all three were proponents of fairness and equality and, you know, basically like this measured approach to getting things done and dealing with people and dealing with situations. So it's interesting to me that this proposal is not measured or balanced. So, I mean, I also, like I said, I'd be happy to leave, but there was never ever any kind of like real like discussion like, hey, you know what, let's break up the DAO, or Faber, you got to leave. Put up your hand, who'd be willing to? I mean, I would think that whenever major decisions have to be made, they would, let's say you could put this proposal in the discussion forum, and then there would have to be some kind of discussion like we're having now before there's an actual vote on the proposal. Because I was saying to Dave today that, you know, just to vote yes or no on something like this, it's kind of difficult because it's not really completely black and white. And there's so many issues to address here that how do you vote yes and no on a proposal that has got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11 distinct, highly important points? It's quite a difficult thing to do. So I would just like to know how it is that it's not so. Where's the common sense? Is kind of what the thing that I'm missing here. I understand the cutting costs, and that's why I say I'll put up my hand. I mean, obviously, if this proposal passes, it makes no difference whether I'm willing to leave or you know, basically saying that I will. But even if it doesn't, I'd still be willing to pack my bags and leave if that means basically, you know, things continue going forward. But each one of you, I heard Chris and you guys talking, even you, John, agreed with it, that basically saying that, to give swapper tokens, to give carrot tokens, but to ignore anemic tokens, but to ignore DXgov, it's strange. It seems personal. It seems personal to me more than what it seems as a drive to kind of save the DAO or save DXD holders. And I am concerned about that as well, because I obviously have DXD that hopefully in the future is worth something, or whenever this time comes. But I'm not really personally attached to this proposal. I do like working for the DAO. I've enjoyed this whole experience, but I don't really have like a personal opinion in terms of like an emotional opinion. Like I don't feel like somebody's gone and attacked me because, this thing says voice people need to be fired. I mean, I've worked in many companies. I've fired my own marketing people in the past, so it's not a surprise to me. But I just asked because you guys were advocating for this kind of like fairness and equality in governance. So this doesn't seem to do that.
Thanks, Wayne. Others, I think this is maybe the most popular call we've had in definitely 2023, maybe back to the bull market times. But so, yeah, keen to be others. I'd be happy to read something. I thought about calling out randomly, but I don't know if that's fair. I'm happy to read things in the chat as well. If there was like a way to generate randomness that I can prove to you that I'm like mixing up all of the tiles and calling a random person, maybe that would be a good thing.
Well, I think Wayne may have been directing his question at you, me, and Augusto. So, I mean, just to address that I hear what you're saying. This doesn't seem entirely fair. But on the flip side of that, I put a lot of effort into trying to get some kind of sensible restructuring, something that would basically establish DXDAO's ability to do what any company or organization does in terms of being able to lay people off, control costs, have some kind of strategic decisions. And those discussions, there's been a lot of discussions around that starting from summer of last year through end of last year. And so personally, I've been disappointed with the lack of sort of outcomes from those efforts. So I kind of get the sentiment that this isn't perfect or isn't fair, but on the flip side, I'm also I would kind of respond with saying that I think I'm personally frustrated with the lack of functioning of the DAO, basically.
We did have a pretty
sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
No. Maybe saying fair is not 100% correct, right? I suppose being in a DAO, you kind of look for this fairness the whole time. But I would also think that it's got to be from a logical perspective more than from a fairness perspective. I mean, Davi has now been built around basically, if you look at what Ross was saying that Davi can do. So Davi also does have the same potential as, let's say, Swapper, Carrot, or Nimi does. And I've also seen a lot of the work that Dirk has done in terms of preparing for going to market, in terms of preparing a user interface for a product that could basically steward governance into other areas and other DAOs of. So that would be, I can't see that if this is based on logic, then it should be that, like you say, yeah, split the treasury, get rid of the dead weight, and I put myself in the dead weight category, so I'm not advocating for my job here. I will even say on this call that I will leave, right? So that way I'm not advocating for my job here. But if this was my business, I wouldn't just be tossing one product for without a reason. and not the others. I would give each one of them an opportunity to basically be able to carry themselves, which DXgov, as far as I'm concerned, from what I've seen the guys are doing and stuff like that, there is as much possibility and future for them as what there is for Swapper or for Carrot or for Nimi. So, my opinion is that this situation has been basically it's backwards. It's like first we have the proposal that creates the chaos, and then we start to discuss it. We should have discussed it first, came to some kind of like agreement, or not agreement, but basically, there in business, there's nobody wins, right? Everybody has to have there has to be like this constant negotiation until there's a consensus amongst everybody, what everybody is willing to give and what they are willing to take in return for what they're willing to give. And that's basically what we should have done here. We should have all sat down and said, hey, you know what, this is going like to shit here, and we're getting pissed off, and you guys don't seem to be listening. So we either sit down or we're going to make a proposal like this in the forum, which is the way that it seems to me is this is what's happened. People got pissed off because they felt they weren't being listened to and weren't being heard, as you've said. And now they basically have made this proposal, which is like this massive like thing that needs to be sorted out, and it creates even more animosity because now you have this side against that side with a simple yes or no in between. Makes it difficult.
We had some hand raised and some comments too, so I don't know. In the Adam says can't Davi raise funds. Ross G says can't Carrot and can't Swapper. Adam says Swapper and Carrot can fund Davi if they think Davi will serve them in governing the protocol product. And then Connor, you raised your hand. I don't know if you wanted to say something. I could read what you said here. Connor says no. There's no vested interest here, but if people want fair, could total up total spend to date on each project, add the 12% treasury in, split 3-4 ways, whatever it is, then pay balance of what's due, i.e. Carrot gets more to balance out funding to date. John says Connor with the logic. Connor says, or pay 80% to DXD holders and then reserve the rest to match what the 4 products can raise independently, so they have to prove they are able to independently raise. Lots of options that are fair, but also meritocratic. Yeah, and then I think Yerrick also raised his hand. So I don't know if you wanted to.
Yes. Well, basically, when I read this proposal, it just looked to me that obviously the proposal is it's obvious that proposal is made by the by person that does not like believe in the DXDAO anymore. So and the other thing was that I was surprised to see all those like bullet points put into one proposal. So that's a lot to digest, and to be honest, I don't understand why all those points are put into one single proposal. Whether there was some thought into all those bullet points or not. But I'm not sure whether it makes sense to discuss all those separate points if like the result for me is like not the restructuring, but rather I feel it like as a DXDAO like shutdown. So I'm not sure if I missed any of these kind of discussions. I remember some the opinions of several of you even a couple months ago, and so I may see your point, but to me it looks like as a proposal just to simply shut the DXDAO. So it might be even fair just to call it that. That's indeed the shutdown of the DAO and the end of the DAO, because not sure what kind of restructuring results from this, to be honest.
Well, as somebody who got involved in DXDAO in 2019, I actually think that you can't really get rid of the rep distribution. That's just on chain, right? And so like a lot of us were active. I mean, it's not a lot of the people present, but there was people kind of before DXD existed, before capital was raised, that sort of saw the vision or some vision, maybe their own vision of DXDAO, and like were involved. So I think you really can't get rid of that and whatever happens with the treasury funds. So I might like slightly reframe that to say that it's more of like a shutdown of the treasury.
Maybe it makes sense to to split this proposal into two, and maybe they can be submitted this week. One to signal the intention of shut down the treasury, right? And another one to propose a shutdown strategy, how the funds are going to be distributed. So in case the shutdown proposal passes, we can start discussing, okay, how this is going to be implemented, following starting with the points present here above, because Key Switch was the one who started the discussion, who presented who did the first iteration of the proposal. Some things can be changed, or maybe not. Let's see. But I think this deserves a lot, not a lot more discussion, but more discussion. And it will be good to signal first if we really want to stop DXG redemptions, start DXG vested instantly, and then propose how the treasury is going to be claimed and distributed. Because again, it's going to also take a lot of, I think, a majority of the posts as a shock until. I didn't. I can speak for myself. I needed to get very seriously because it was someone anonymous who posted it. So yeah, I can speak for that. But this is the thing. It was like a grenade was thrown next to a dynamite case, and everything started blowing away, and it sparked a lot of hidden desires and that other contributors had that maybe didn't express. And this is what happens when you put a spark there. So again, a big explosion. I think we should have another discussion, like maybe take another week to discuss another iteration of these proposals, if it is that we really want to close the treasury. And yeah, this is what I would propose to. Actually, what I proposed on the post was to wait till we can execute the restructure that it took so much time to decide, to design, to implement. We are the first 3 months of this guild squad structure, which this can be an effect. This can happen. I think this happened also because of what we did, because we separated into different gears, squads. We increased the individual. We separated even more as an organization. And I mentioned that this could happen on the routine. And when we were talking about this new structure, I didn't like it that is going to make the squad separate even more instead of working together as a sole and unique DAO. So this is what happened. Now we are even more separated. Everyone feel like, okay, they are ready to go on their own. And if it is what every squad wants, let's signal this and let's try to distribute the funds we have in the first way possible, which there is always going to be a person that is going to be against it, that we cannot make everyone happy. That's impossible to make everyone happy. So yeah, ideally this is what I propose, but seems like most of the products and projects wants to go on their own.
I was a DXDAO maximalist for a long time, and I felt like it was kind of like swimming upstream, trying to keep everything kind of focused on the same goal, you know. And I think it's important to have some levity here too, that like this is still an experiment, right? And we're like actually learning about how governance works by engaging in this. Obviously, there's some serious stuff on the line, but for me, yeah, I feel like one of the lessons I've learned is that, like, individual squads, individual people, they all have their own incentives, right? And if those aren't kind of set correctly early on or at the beginning, it becomes very difficult to like coordinate, multiple groups around a single goal. Didn't John get? I don't think DXgov was really fired anybody.
No,
Zet,
he didn't.
Zet, do you want
to? Yeah, he
Zet,
didn't
do you
get
want
fired.
to speak?
Oh man,
Zet.
man, there's no more ice to break. Ross, thank you. No, I just voted actually on the proposal. I know a lot of people will be very disappointed on that. I have my own reasons, but one big reason why I think I think there's urgency on this proposal is because there's an incentive for current workers to not vote on this, right? You stop getting paid, right? That is an incentive to keep getting paid. And I'm not saying all of us think or all of us think this way, but it is an incentive to keep the DAO alive as it is today. And the second thing is, if we keep the DAO alive as it is today, we lose more and more rep to the current workers. But that's how the balance looks like. And I think if anything like this can be achieved, it is through doing this. And it is a hard thing to do, but if we do this in 6 months, then majority of the rep will not be held by non-contributors, right? I think being a contributor is too powerful today, and I don't trust that contributors will do the right thing for everyone. That's my biggest reason for voting on this.
I very much agree with that. Is that, like, I think, it wasn't really the intention with the Governance 2.0 proposal was to have DXD have an equal say, but because of the amount of time it's been, with the rep inflation to worker proposals, just in effect, DXDAO is like an employer or employee collective.
Yeah, I do think obviously former contributors are also incentivized to vote a certain way on this proposal, given the payout of the vesting. So I mean, I think there's clear incentives here, and also given where the funds are going, I think there's obviously vested interest all around here.
Welcome to politics, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, and I just I don't know if there's others want to keep opening. I think probably we don't need to go much further here if there's not other people introducing their own thoughts and ideas. I think the forum is obviously a great place for all of this. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just say kind of the same thing I said here, that I still don't think really anyone's addressed is the two concerns for me in this specific proposal. And the reason I voted down was because I don't think it's a fair distribution to the three products. And that just, there's kind of no thought in terms of how that's going. And then second is the DXD holders losing kind of claim on the other products. I think that's the reason that I voted that down. Anyone else happy to respond to those or reply with their own things, or if there are other comments that people have, they can make now or in the forum.
I would just say that I think the best way to propose something like that would be to put up another proposal, because like Zet said, it's like, how do you trust that we're not going to go back to another 6 months of, well, let's just discuss it more, right? That's I kind of sympathize with some of the criticisms here, but on the other hand, I think this is much better than doing nothing. So
yeah,
I feel like personally, unless it's an alternative.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the ideas that Connor said there, I think are also worth considering. I'm happy to put together a counter proposal. I think the people voting on it maybe could have waited for that to develop. If their option was to have a counter proposal for something, I think some time and consideration on what that is would have been considered. But obviously, given the gravity of the moment, there probably needs to be something that people can get intangible on that. So yeah, and so I think just in terms of that, tomorrow there was the previously scheduled DXC Monetary Policy Committee meeting. So I think I will run through some ideas and happy to present any ideas from people about how to have a counter proposal that is similar to achieving the aims of this, but does so in a way that is more fair and equitable.
I'll address Connor's latest question in the chat about the raise matching. I also think that is a really interesting idea, and Swapper, Carrot, Swapper for over 3 years, Carrot for 2 years. Like, there's been people working on these things, and they're not complete products yet, so it's taking a long time. I think DXDAO can learn from Gnosis. Like, when we tried to spin out Swapper kind of by launching a token, but we didn't have any governance. There's no way to actually launch it to the world, and so it launched a token, but then it didn't actually turn it over to anyone. And now it's just been funding the slow building of it for a while now, for a few years. And so if products are gonna be able to survive on their own, like Gnosis did, they incubated them, and then they raised money on their own, and then Gnosis gave them some money, and they spun them off, and they turned over full control to the team and to a new governance system. And like Gnosis, GNO token does not control COW at all anymore, and GNO does not control SAFE at all. Like, they launched them into the world. As part of that, they had to raise money. They luckily did it in a more attractive market. It's harder right now, but I agree. Like, Carrot is a really interesting product. I think it can become its own product, but just giving money to Swapper and Carrot and like saying, here, just burn the rest of this, and Carrot doesn't even have a governance token or anything. Swapper could become a governance token, but they really, without some outside justification that it's a valuable product and people want to be a part of it and invest in it, DXDAO giving it money is probably also not a smart investment. Like, if no one else wants to invest in it, why should DXDAO invest in it? So DXDAO just giving money to the few people that are building the products right now, like, I don't think that's going to help the product in any way. Like, we want the product to have success. So I think Carrot should, if Carrot wants to become its own thing, it should go out. It can, and I'm happy to help, but it can go out and try to raise money and become its own entity, and then DXDAO could also invest in it and give it some launch money. But if it can't raise any money on its own and it's not interesting to anyone else in the world, why would DXD holders and DXDAO want to just give it a bunch of money? And so you could say the same about all the products. So I really like the idea of a product having to prove itself in the wild with a certain amount of people in order for DXDAO to give it maybe any funding at all. And money is not the reason why Carrot is not an existing product right now. If we could throw $1 million at Carrot and then it would be live today, that would be amazing. But that hasn't been the case. Like, there's no amount of money that can get Carrot to live, complete, finish, not initial version, but fourth version that's working and does everything that the Carrot should do. I don't know if it's the certain amount of money that DXDAO would just give it. That's not going to make it go faster. it's gonna, so like if any product needs money to go build faster, it can already get that money from DXDAO. So it's not a matter of getting it money so far. But we can, I think if we're gonna spin out products, we should do it so that the product's sustainable and has a long-term model to exist.
What has prevented Swapper from moving out on its own?
So Vinky, did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to bounce off Sky here that, I mean, I don't think DXDAO is a good place for us to build products, not in the way that it is set up. Because, I mean, DXDAO has set of priorities, but then as products that you want to move faster, you don't have the support of marketing, you don't have the support of growth team, you don't have the support of biz dev when you actually need it. It has to be like a constant evolvement of these, but it's I don't think DXDAO in its current shape would be able to spin out any successful product. Yeah, that's the bottom line. We are great at governance, but then we build and support. We are great at governance in terms of non-token based governance, but then when it comes to funding and supporting DAWI, we then move ourselves and support token based governance. So I don't understand what DXDAO wants. It's just confusing.
Thanks, Venki. I'm just, some other things in the chat. Swapper token already exists, and how Swapper can spin out and how that will affect with Swapper token. John says can even relaunch a token and airdrop to Swapper token holders. Bob Ross says lets the product prove themselves. That's it. Playing favorites. Ross Nielsen says, I guess the question is, how does DXDAO invest or even choose if the DAO gets dissolved? And Dave says, look at the ARB debacle, which is, I think what Venki was saying about splitting that up. Other thought, we were literally right at the at the top of the hour. And Dave says NGL, still happy I voted for. Any other thoughts, comments, suggestions? Maybe people will feel more comfortable in the forum, but wanted to, give an opportunity here now. The sun will. I was going to make a joke about spring continuing to spring, but then I realized there's still that southern hemisphere. It ruins some of those connections. So, people saying constructive discussion. The dream is over, I guess. If this passes, what happens next? This proposal passes, that's next. This guy says IRL, so some chats there. But I think we can leave it here. As I said, we're still going to do the DXD Monetary Policy Committee meeting tomorrow. Presumably there will be some thoughts on this and maybe continuing the conversation. So that is actually at 1400 UTC. And then also just because I did it and it's like when you do something, you want to tell people about it. But there's a Q1 Operations Guild update in the forum. I'm not sure if anyone cares there, as well as one from DXgov here. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining, and have a great Wednesday.
Thanks.
Adiós,
Cheers.
gracias. Chao, chao.
Cheers.